With the recent release of the Shadow of the Erdtree official trailer, you might have heard mentions of someone called St. Trina. And before you ask if this is some obscure NPC you missed talking to, don't worry, you haven't. This figure takes on a much broader encompassing role in the Lands Between, and I will tell you everything you need to know about St. Trina. To start this tale, we will begin with a flower, Trina's lily. This is no ordinary lily. It has elongated and trumpet-like petals. Hundreds of different lily species exist in real life, and one of them that bears a resemblance is the Lilium Candidum, or Madonna lily. The Roman Catholic Church has long considered this lily a symbol of purity, partly because of its pristine white colouring. You may often find artwork portraying the Virgin Mary alongside or holding lilies resembling the Lilium Candidum. There's even a prayer that is very fitting for introducing St. Trina today into this mix of symbols and characters. It goes as such: Hail Mary, white lily of the glorious and always serene Trinity. The word Trinity usually refers to a trio of people or things, often used when describing the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son and Holy Spirit. But to circle this back to St. Trina, the word Trina is also very close to the word Trinity. Trina may stem from the Latin word trinus, meaning triple. With this name, the title of saint and the symbol of the lily, there are unmistakable religious undertones here that are too great to ignore. As a final point to link the lily and the number 3, take a look at this emblem. This is the fleur-de-lis, French for lily flower, and is commonly thought to depict a stylized lily with its 3 petal segments. This symbol has appeared in various forms throughout history in art, architecture and heraldry. While its origin is heavily debated, it is widely associated with French sovereignty and is used in its royal coat of arms. All this is to say that the lily is simultaneously religious, political, and artistic. Although similar in appearance and symbolism to Madonna's lily, Trina's lily is explicitly stated to be a water lily in the item's description. Water lilies are entirely different from their land-dwelling relatives, mainly as their name suggests, they only grow when submerged in water. And am I going to split hairs here over a flower? You know it. There are around 130 of Trina's lilies in the game, most of which are not submerged in water. A couple are by rivers, but for the most part, these lilies grow on land. But to give them the benefit of the doubt, we will say these are indeed water lilies, not related to Madonna's lily. So what are they then? The lily is described as pale purple, and the next best real-life lily I could find is the Nymphaea elegans, or elegant water lily. This one has the same delicate white to purple colouring and a stem long enough to droop, just like Trina's lily, described as being on the brink of wilting. And this is relevant because St. Trina is heavily associated with sleep. There are quite a few items in the game that either apply or cure the sleep ailment. Here are some of the ones I could find. From looking at them, what do you notice they all have in common? They all have purple colouring in their design. Purple is the established colour in-game to signify sleep. When an enemy accumulates enough of the status effect, they will succumb to sleep, becoming incapacitated for 1 minute or until they take damage. You can tell if you've applied sleep successfully by the purple streak of light that will appear around a victim's head, accompanied by what looks like spectral feathers or falling leaves. One way to create sleep is to mix mushrooms and Trina's lily and seal the magic in a cracked pot. Enchanted by the incantations of St. Trina, like a lullaby or a quagmire, its light purple haze irresistibly draws its victims down into sleep, sweet dreams. The comparison to a lullaby is comforting, however it's shortly followed by the alternative of a quagmire. A quagmire is a soft bog-like land that is perilous to walk across, as you can very quickly sink and drown in its muddy depths. Coupled with the game's sleep mechanic, this adds a sinister perspective. St. Trina's magic seems to entrap individuals, compelling them to struggle against the dense, murky embrace of sleep. The conclusion of sweet dreams is almost derisive, suggesting that while sleep may be restorative to some, it also holds a dangerously tempting allure. So were St. Trina's incantations designed for malicious purposes originally, or was this an abuse of the followers, not the creator? A record of crafting techniques left by a man who was utterly captivated by St. Trina. He continued the search for her in his slumber. The mention of being captivated by St. Trina raises intriguing possibilities. Was she genuinely captivating, drawing individuals to her with her otherworldly allure, or was there a purposeful, magical element to ensnare followers and bend them to her will? The name of the item that gives you this description is also intriguing. Feather's Cookbook. Initially, I misread it as fervour with an R, which means a burning, intense feeling. However, it is written without the R as Fevor, which implies that it's a name. Their name is Fevor, and this is their note. There is probably a play on words here, as according to the description, Fevor was so deeply enamoured with St. Trina that he ventured into the realm of sleep in search of her. Did he know there was a chance of seeing her in the sleep realm? Had he seen her before? How did he even know if she was real? Clearly none of that mattered to one so driven by fervent devotion, hence the name. The cookbook image depicts what looks like Feather's drawing of Trina's lily, breaking down its anatomy, essentially what I was doing in the first section of this video. But based on his studies, he concluded that he would have to willingly succumb to a potentially eternal sleep. This was a huge leap of faith in the name of science, knowledge, but probably more because of his intense obsession with Trina. Feather is undoubtedly not the only devoted follower of Trina. Other item descriptions hint at this saint's prolificness. Arrow carved to resemble a withered water lily, afflicts targets with a powerful sleep effect. Priests of St. Trina use these arrows to spread their teachings. The sweet oblivion of sleep can become quite the habit. The fact that there are also dedicated priests of St. Trina shows that there are enough followers and religious hierarchy to follow and dedicate their lives to this religion. This brings me to the case of Trina's title, Saint. According to the Roman Catholic Church criteria, sainthood requires a formal process before you are officially recognised. To briefly sum up this process, you must have lived a wholly devoted life, having demonstrated multiple virtues. You must have performed at least 2 miracles or have had a history of miraculous interventions. Some examples of miracles are scientifically inexplicable healing, resurrecting others, and being able to float, extraordinary phenomena. However, one of the most exciting criteria when considering this in the context of St. Trina is that to be a saint, you must have died. To my understanding, you cannot be recognised as a saint while alive, at least not in the modern day system. Thus, according to real-life classification, St. Trina must be presently deceased. Unless, of course, she is a living saint. The term living saint sounds paradoxical, yet it does exist in fiction and other game universes like the Elder Scrolls and Warhammer. Funnily enough, the Sisters of Battle faction use a fleur-de-lis in their insignia. Anyway, one cannot simultaneously be living and a saint. A minimum of 5 years post-death is typically necessary for canonization, although exceptions do exist. For example, the Pope waived this rule to bestow the title of saint upon Mother Teresa just 2 years after her passing. In the lands between, it's conceivable that specific rules may be bent or adapted to grant St. Trina this esteemed title, but most importantly, there is no explicit mention of Trina's demise. It's plausible that her status as deceased is not common knowledge. Perhaps, intriguingly, St. Trina remains among the living. Or maybe Feather was onto something when he dove into the sleep realm. Maybe St. Trina only exists in the sleeping plane to circumvent her possible death in the living plane. But as I said earlier, how do we know that St. Trina is a real being that exists and not just some shared group hallucination? The description of Trina's significant sword can help shed some light. St. Trina is an enigmatic figure. Some say she is a comely young girl, others are sure he is a boy. The only certainty is that their appearance was as sudden as their disappearance. So a couple of things here. There are witnesses who claim to have glimpsed St. Trina, although very fleetingly. Trina appeared suddenly and then vanished. These accounts describe St. Trina as young, but debate over their gender. This ambiguity might hint that Trina has a more androgynous appearance, blurring conventional gender distinctions, hence bystanders couldn't agree on what they saw. It's also plausible that St. Trina did appear as a girl and a boy on separate occasions. They are capable, fluidly manifesting their form and biological sex. That is why in various item descriptions, Trina is referred to as she, they, and he. All seem to be established ways of referring to St. Trina, and from here on I will refer to St. Trina with female pronouns, partly because of clarity and for reasons later in the video. She can appear as male, female, young, and old. Intriguingly, there is a portrayal of St. Trina as an adult. The appearance of Trina's torch has a carving depicting St. Trina, but in adult form, somewhat unnervingly. It's unclear if this is an artistic interpretation by the sculptor, or if it is true to life, made directly from reference. What is for sure is that St. Trina has something quite eerie about her. The description calls the adult form unnerving. Most likely this refers to the long, curling tresses of hair obscuring the upper half of the face, and in the centre of the forehead sits one unblinking eye. This looks like a third eye, a symbolic representation prevalent in many spiritual practices like Buddhism and Hinduism. The third eye is a metaphorical doorway to accessing things beyond regular vision, unlocking more profound wisdom, insight, and enlightenment. The third eye also has a fitting connection to St. Trina. Theosophist Blavatsky theorized that the third eye is a partially inactive area of the brain, the pineal gland. This tiny component is part of your endocrine system and is responsible for secreting the hormone melatonin. You might be able to see where I'm going with this. The pineal gland helps regulate your circadian rhythms, which are your cycles of sleep and wakefulness. Therefore, the third eye is a representation of the pineal gland. The pineal gland regulates sleep, ergo St. Trina's third eye is an extension of her sleep-inducing abilities. Whether St. Trina possesses a physical third eye, or if this serves as a symbolic representation, remains open to interpretation. We may find out more in the DLC, especially with this distinctive character. They appear to be sleeping on the ground in a room with a purple glow, which, as we established, may be a hint of sleepy time. And this character also seems to be wearing a porcelain-like mask. It may be the angle, but this forehead space seems larger than average. I'd like to theorize that this character may be a boss fight or an enemy type, and during the battle, a third eye may appear in that forehead space and put you to sleep. Returning to the torch and focusing on the hair part, something about this might look quite familiar. A partly obscured face with long branching strands. Tree branches.
I heard speculation Miquella embedded himself in the Halig tree. But before he could finish, someone cut the tree open and absconded with his infant form.
As part of Miquella's plan to make his own Erd tree, he attempted to grow his own from scratch, watering it with his blood, and eventually surrendering his body to be engulfed by the tree. It's unclear if he did this before or after the outcome of his Halig tree failing to grow into an Erd tree. However, what is clear is that the tree branches grew in response to this, twisting into the shape of long hair and a youthful face, bearing a similarity to that face on Trina's torch. But that is not the only connection between these two characters. St. Trina and Miquella both possess a level of ambiguity with their gender and age. St. Trina is described as a young individual of uncertain gender, with depictions ranging from a young girl to a young boy and existing portrayals of an adult form with an undetermined sex. This fluidity of identity is mirrored in Miquella, who was born afflicted with the body of a perpetually young child. Miquella's long flowing gold hair and androgynous appearance due to his prepubescence further reinforce this notion of ambiguity and parallel St. Trina. As a side note, much of this is reminiscent of Gwyndolin from Dark Souls 1, specifically the topic of Gwyndolин's gender. Miquella and Gwyndolin have very similar appearances, young, androgynous, both fair and golden, with long hair and dressed in white. Gwyndolин's lore mentions that he was born male but raised as a daughter. This is partly because of his frail body and affinity for the moon, a typically feminine associated symbol. Another item of interest from DS1 is the Reversal Ring, an item gifted to Gwyndolin to make his demeanour more feminine. For the player, it means that if you made a male character, equipping this would swap you to the female animation moveset, and vice versa for female characters. To relate this to St. Trina, if you remember the elegant lily species I mentioned at the beginning of this video, a fun fact about those is that they are protogynous. This means they are functionally female when they first flower. Their female gametes mature before transitioning to produce male gametes in the following days. This natural phenomenon gives new meaning to St. Trina's symbolic lilies and the concept of gender fluidity as seen in Gwyndolin and Miquella. Returning to Elden Ring and the similarities between Trina and Miquella, both of these characters command a devoted following, with St. Trina's priests, clerics and admirers captivated by her mysterious allure. At the same time, Miquella is revered and loved by many, partly due to his mysteriously powerful, compelling presence. They also both have lilies to signify their cause. Trina's lilies are used to calm and symbolize faith and tranquility. This mirrors Miquella's golden lily, which signifies devotion to the Halig Tree and the promise of salvation. Both characters arguably provide a sanctuary, one in the Halig Tree's haven for the meek, and the other in the enveloping realm of sleep. Moreover, a location in-game further blurs the lines between St. Trina and Miquella. In Altus Plateau, there is a statue that depicts Miquella and his twin sister Melania. This area was initially called Trina's Hideaway. What better hideaway is there than in the arms of one's beloved sister? St. Trina and Miquella could be two sides of the same coin, partly why I refer to St. Trina with female pronouns. I wanted to differentiate between the two because all of this fits into one of the game's most prevalent themes. Duality, dichotomy, breaking and mending, golden and tarnished, life and death, light and dark, male and female. So are Miquella and St. Trina the exact same person? Are they two beings that just happen to inhabit the same body, like Marika and Radagon? Or are they separate and entirely different individuals who just happen to have a lot of similarities? It's entirely up to you to decide. However, I do have some extra information that might sway your decision. This part will now delve into cut content, which is data mined characters, dialogue, and items not implemented in the base game. At the time of this video, there may still be a slight chance these could pop up in the DLC, so if you want to avoid that, please skip ahead to the next chapter. So one cut character is an NPC named Reeling Rico, whose quest is to do with sleep. Rico's hobby concerns the creation of Dream Brew, a potent elixir of the demigods said to unveil hidden truths. To concoct this drink, Rico tasks you with gathering the most essential ingredient, a component known as Dream Mist, or Slumber Fog as he calls it. To collect this ethereal substance, Rico gives you a special tool to do so, St. Trina's Crystal Ball. The art of this asset is beautiful. At the top you can see a carving of St. Trina's signature lily, and on the side, a figure, presumably another depiction of her, due to the long flowing hair and youthful face. Based on Rico's dialogue and the cut content, you could approach a sleeping enemy or NPC with the crystal ball and interact to collect the dream mist. I would highly recommend this video by Sekiro Devi, where they restore and recreate what the dream quest line would have looked like. Many other characters are involved in the sleep quest, but most of their dialogue and presence was sadly cut from the release version. Dream Brew's importance lies in its ability to draw forth secrets within a victim's subconscious. Rico likens secrets to fine wine. The longer they mature in the dark, the richer the flavour. Interestingly enough, there is a fair bit of removed dialogue from many of the friendly NPCs like E.G., Bok and Roderica, to name a few, implying that you could have offered them Dream Brew. The dialogue suggests that they were unfamiliar with its effects but recognised it as a special alcohol. They would drink it and fall asleep, allowing you to peer into their sleeping minds and glean some of their personal secrets. But what Rico wants to use the Dream Brew for is on Miquella. We know this because Rico's dialogue hints at his pursuit of clues regarding Miquella's abduction. He moves to the consecrated snowfield after you unlock the secret lift and tells you he is following bloody footprints. If you go to the western portion of the consecrated snowfield, you can actually find a trail of blood in the snow leading to a teleporter. And if you teleport yourself, you'll be in Mohgwyn Palace, and a bloody trail will lead you to Mohg, the abductor and captor of Miquella. A small note is that close to this teleporter, you have both Trina's and Miquella's lily growing. So why is Rico so fixated on Miquella? After reading between the lines of the cut dialogue, when you have defeated Mohg, Rico will now appear by Miquella's cocoon, and he will say, "Finally, I have found it. St. Trina's, no, Lord Miquella's cadaver." This slip in phrasing is really intriguing. Does Rico know for a fact that they are the same entity? Was it a genuine mistake, or does Rico acknowledge that Miquella is currently in his male form rather than the female form of St. Trina? Either way, this is the most damning evidence that supports that they are the same person in some regard. However, this content was cut for a reason. Based on other cut content, this could be due to several reasons. Perhaps they didn't have enough time to implement the quests before the release deadline, or technical issues arose during development. Whatever the reason for the decision to remove the content will continue to be a mystery. All of this content isn't like an Easter egg. It's not just a mysterious JPEG or an out-of-bounds object. These are entire character arcs by narrative designers, thought out NPC appearances and personalities by creatives. These are voice actors who put in their passion and soul, who either had their character removed entirely or were reduced to a generic NPC, their dialogue now only a shadow of what they were initially dreamed up to be. I don't want to sound salty or ungrateful about the final product, which is Elden Ring. I'm just sad that these things were cut, and we will never know why. But, and there is a but, these things could have been cut to give more time for them to be fixed and then included in the DLC, which is entirely possible. In a recent IGN interview with Miyazaki, he stated that the DLC will commence when the player interacts with the arm coming out of the cocoon. Miquella has gone to the land of shadow, and we will follow him there. Several characters in the world have also been following Miquella, whom we will also encounter on the journey. So we may encounter Rico. At the end of his cut quest, it seems that he is also interacting with Miquella's cocoon. He says, speaking to Miquella, "I have partaken of untold secrets, such that I might aid you, O Lord. So please, I hope you can welcome your humble servant, Rico, into your dream, the world of your heart." After he finishes speaking, he goes silent, perhaps now peering into Miquella's slumbering mind, the help of his ultimate dream brew. I think we will be going to a dreamlike world for the DLC. Whenever people refer to the cocoon, they always refer to it as being Miquella and him being in a sleep-like state. Miyazaki clarified that we are tracing Miquella's path as if we are watching the events of his dream. It was also revealed that the DLC area will occupy the same space as where the Lands Between exists, but they are physically disconnected, kind of like a dream is from the real waking plane. The base game contains a couple more small features that may or may not be linked to St. Trina. There is an abundance of Trina's lilies at the Apostate Derelict, where you find the giant albinuric philia. There are 13 of them in this small area. To put this into perspective, you usually find 1, 2, or at most 3 lilies at a time, so 13 of them must indicate something of significance in this area, and that thing is philia, more specifically, the fact that philia is sleeping. Could this be a sign that St. Trina visited philia here and blessed her with sleep? The lilies growing here remind me of the trope where a character would walk and bring forth nature as they did so, grass and flowers growing underfoot. St. Trina's influence could manifest her unique lilies as a sign of where she has dwelled. Similarly, in the Liurnian swamp, you will find the second densest cluster of Trina's lilies. On a small dry patch of land, you will find an abundance of these flowers, and also crabs. Small and large, they seem to flock to this particular area. If you get into combat with the adult ones, they actually have a sleep move, spraying a mist in front of them, which can cause your character to stumble as you regain lucidity. And there may be a good reason why these crabs have this ability. If you watch their non-hostile behaviour, you can see them scavenge for food in the swamp. They feast on fauna and flora, appearing to eat Trina's lilies. They may have been able to absorb the soporific properties, utilising sleep as both a defence mechanism and a means of sustenance. After all, you can use Trina's lilies yourself as the main ingredient for crafting sleep items. What's to say that consuming the flower raw won't give you the same power to harness yourself? Further observations of lilies growing near sea creatures like land octopi also hint at Trina's involvement. While these creatures don't induce sleep like the crabs, they are very vulnerable to slumber and resemble St. Trina physically. As this comment suggests, the flowing hair of Trina's adult depiction is reminiscent of tentacles, and her third eye is akin to an octopus beak. This is a fun theory, and it reminds me of Medusa. Her hair of snakes, hiding both beauty and peril, with an equally unnerving but also charming appearance. Instead of turning people to stone, St. Trina would turn them to sleep. In conclusion, we don't know much about St. Trina. We don't know what she wants, her motives or her objectives. To her, sleep may serve as escapism or restoration, but it could also be wielded as a weapon for manipulation or control. In the case of Fevor, was he captivated or recruited? Did Trina establish herself as a prominent spiritual figure, or is this a case of mass religious zealotry? And most importantly, is Trina alive or not? There's a good chance we will get some answers when the DLC comes in June, as there were a couple of hints in the trailer about St. Trina. For example, this figure is one that we covered earlier, and there are also other references like this part of the trailer. You have a dark purple, hazy cave area with one of my favourite enemy designs I've seen so far, but I bring this up not only because purple is linked to St. Trina, but also because in the background it looks like Trina's lilies are growing here, or they could be Miquella's lilies. They both have that drooping flower shape, so we may be getting more on St. Trina, or this is just a reuse of the flower asset. A girl can dream. Thank you everybody so much if you made it this far watching this video. I hope this helped cover St. Trina, as it would be really exciting if we get to see her in the DLC. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. Let me know your interpretation of the item descriptions and the information that I presented. I'd love to hear your interpretations. And a special thank you now to my channel members and patrons.